20 years of leadership in business and beyond.
Welcome back. It's quite on the equity side of the screen. Time now to talk about commodities and get to that promised conversation on a look back at 2019 and more importantly a look out to 2020 when it comes to the agriculture space. Manisha Gupta in the house for that. Good morning, Manisha.
Thank you for that, Survi. Well, yes, agriculture was a lot of talk when we started this year, but it doesn't really seem to be ending like that because there have been various other things that the government has shifted focus to, and even as there are higher MSPs announced, we have seen most of the Kharif crops actually trade below those MSPs, and there have been those concerns about agri-finance still continuing into the market. While of course on a year-on-year basis we perhaps have better numbers there, but the grassroots levels, the small marginal landholders and farmers are still facing a lot of financing challenges there. Joining us for the conversation is Sandeep Sabharwal. He is CEO at SLCM and he joins us on a Delhi phone line. Sandeep, hi, good to have you. First of all, how would you rate the year 2019 when it comes to agriculture as a space in sense of government reforms and agri-financing? What is, how would you really, give it a score on a report card?
All right. Good morning, Manisha. And first of all, to answer that, rather than giving a scorecard, I can say that there has been systematic changes or a way forward that the government has been pushing forward for the last, not 2019, but from 2017 onwards. But the problem still persists on the ground. So what I'm trying to say is that I deeply believe that the agri environment is still in a state of shock. And this requires a rethinking, a reboot of the entire agri sector, whether it is agri storage or whether it is agri financing, both. And I think 2019 would be an year where we should retrospect, we should look at introspect and say what has gone wrong. I don't think that, despite all good measures, at one end we have been hiking MSP on year basis, but at the same time the crisis at the farm level is not going away. So obviously that means that something is gone wrong at our policy level as well as at the implementation level.
Sandeep, how would you look at the agri-financing growth? I mean, as we've discussed earlier as well, the numbers are, there is a growth not at the desired level, but how would you put last couple of years perhaps in perspective?
Manisha, I think past couple of years we've seen a change in the society, whereas we have seen NBFCs taking a key role in agri-financing. They have been evolving and we've seen new NBFCs coming in, even older NBFCs which are looking at other asset classes have started looking at agri as an asset class, so which is a very welcome change. But the speed at which we would want such things to happen and the quantum or the volume that should come across is not happening. And I think one of the major reasons for that is that these NBFCs are not looked upon as different NBFCs. I can't compare an agri NBFC which is serving an asset class on agri compared to a consumer NBFC because of the rate of return and the ROI that an agri NBFC can charge its inherent customers is far below what a consumer NBFC can charge its customers.
Really? Because
it has underlying issues for doing so. So I believe that cheaper credit needs to be made available to these NBFCs going forward, because the other question that you asked me was that what do you think about 2020? And I think one of the major asks, at least which I have been asking for the last 3 budgets, is that cheaper credit should be made available to these NBFCs which are catering specifically to agri as an asset class.
Sandeep, also coming on, I mean, I get that it's been an ask actually for a few years now, but also coming on what is really available and where are the major challenges right now? Is it, we've spoken about value chains starting right from the farmer to, and the value chains also starting right from the producer to marketing, branding, exporting, including all the stakeholders. The concerns I understand are still at the ground level right now. So what is your expectation or what really needs to be done? Because we also are a month and more away from budget right now. So what is the ask now in very immediate terms when it comes to the space?
So 2 asks, and again these are the asks which have been there for quite some time now. One obviously is the rationalization of GST towards lease rentals of warehouse service providers. I have said this before and I'm again saying this at the cost of repetition, is that for professional warehouse management companies like us, which are now growing in number as well as in strength, when we are taking a warehouse on lease, it's treated as a commercial lease and hence there is a GST applicable on us. Right. Whereas the services that we give are devoid of GST because of an agri output service. So this GST itself becomes a cost on our balance sheet, which is then obviously passed on to the customer. So I think there has to be a rationalization to this one. Obviously, cheaper credit too. And I think one more is the idea of resetting the entire thought on agri. You see, we need to come across with a defined policy level, which is now defining the micro of the agri and not the macro. We've seen policy levels at macro, and we've seen good initiatives like ENAM. We've seen good initiatives on talks about creation of silos or creation of warehousing infrastructure. But at the end of the day, after even 4 years, 3 years of these good reforms, the fact still remains that the agri sector is still in trouble. So I believe there needs to be a reset in the thought process of what is to be addressed, and I think these 2 points would go forward in addressing a lot of concerns of the agri sector.
Absolutely, Sandeep. We'll of course have a detailed chat on that as well, but I do get your point that it really is about the speed and quantum of agri-financing and of course rationalization of GST that seems to top of mind of these organizations.
Okay, all right, Manisha, thanks very much for taking us through that conversation. Well, for the markets, it's absolutely quiet. We just have the Bank Nifty, which is down around 0.3%, so extended its losses a little bit, but it's a lot about mid caps and small caps. So say something like an Infi